Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Crucible Bootcamp. I'm your host, King Koala, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Rumble match on Shores of Time. This was sent to me by a user who's playing Voidwalker, and her loadout is Thorn Sniper. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So today we're going to be covering three main topics: active versus passive engagements, how to stay isolated in Rumble, and kind of the pitfalls of playing too much in the air. So let's start with active versus passive engagements. Now, the difference between an active and a passive engagement is your movement, or lack thereof. So when you go into an active engagement, you're actively moving towards the enemy where they're going to end up moving, and you're basically aiming and forcing yourself to get an engagement with them. You're not waiting around for them. You're taking the action right to them. A passive engagement is a little bit different. A passive engagement would be something focused more on setting up on an angle, say a traffic lane, and just waiting for someone to show up. You're not taking the action to them, you're waiting for them to come to you. Now, both are fine play styles, but you kind of come into two different ways to approach the game. An active play style will put you into more engagements. So in Rumble, you want to get in more engagements, right? We want our time between engagements to be as low as possible, and we want to get in as many engagements as possible because that's how you win a Rumble match. It's time between engagements. The only way you're going to win that match is if you actively pursue players. Now, if you just want a really high KD, or you just want to practice your engagements or practice your 1v1s or play a little bit more defensively, or maybe that's just your style, then you would focus more on a passive play. So you would actively move towards the angle you want to look at. So you'd be really aggressive about getting to wherever you want to get to. But then once you get there, you just sit and you wait. And this playstyle is really focused on punishing your opponents for moving around the map. And that's okay to do. Everybody has different playstyle. Not everybody is going to be super hyper aggressive and just like constantly be slaying the enemy team. But that doesn't mean you can't be useful to your enemy team, right? If you lock down a section of the map, no matter what game mode you're playing, even if you're just by yourself, if you lock down a section of the map and you effectively cut off that way to move around the map for your opponents, then that helps your slayers because it funnels your slayer into one specific lane. Now, you run the risk of your slayer now getting teamed, right? Now two people are going to your slayer instead of one in your lane, one on the slayer. But that's the risk you run. And if that happens, you can actually adjust your angle and move forward and tighten your grip on the map. So here we see our hero kind of floating around, searching for engagements, just moving up pretty aggressively to where she wants to be. So this is a passive engagement, right? If we go to back boats on Shores of Time, this is a passive position. We're just waiting for people to show up and we're going to snipe them, right? We see on our radar in our top left up there, someone is showing up on radar on the jungle boat. We're on B boat. On jungle boat, there's someone, over there. So we're going to look around, read our radar. Okay, they're not there anymore. And we're just going to slowly rotate back, right? This is more active, right? We saw someone on our radar, and we're going to push towards them in order to get into an engagement. So you don't necessarily have to pick one or the other. A good player will mix both, right? There's a time and a place for both styles to fit. And being able to switch from hyper-aggressive to hyper-passive or somewhere in between is going to make you more flexible and put you in better situations overall than if you just pick one or the other, right? So here, you saw she jumped over to engage down on top of the player. Now, if someone is behind cover, that means if someone is completely behind cover, right, you can't see them, they can't see you, technically to them, to their perspective, you are completely under cover. So a great way to engage someone who is under complete cover is to get vertical and go over the top of them. So, but there are problems with getting vertical, right? And the main thing is that, especially in Rumble, if you jump into the air, yes, that one particular person that was behind cover is now exposed, and you can engage them, but anyone else on any other point of the map has complete control over them getting free shots off on you, right? Now Shores of Time is a longer map, so it's a little bit more difficult for you to get picked making these risky jumps because most people in Rumble don't run snipers. Even on a map like Shores of Time, the shotgun is still the preferred secondary. So these jumps are a little bit safer. Now, you can still get picked off by a pulse or a scout rifle, which are going to be more popular on a map like Shores of Time. But that's the risk you run by getting in the air like that. So when you do get in the air, you want to make sure you spend as little time as possible finishing the engagement, because the longer you stay in the air, the worse it's going to be for you. Now, I talked about this last time, if you were here last episode, or if you watched it on episode 40, but we talked about searching for opponents with our face. Now, we see that she has a sniper rifle, right? And she knows that someone is in Waterfall Pool. Now, if someone is there, and you know they're there, you can scope in. Like, you can try to get a body shot. But by searching with your face completely out of cover like that, it was really good to pull back into cover, but you should have never taken damage like that without returning fire in the first place. So now we just get a really clean snipe, and this is a sign of a good sniper. Like, this engagement tells me that this person knows what they're doing with their sniper rifle. She knew exactly where they were coming from. She knew pretty much had a good idea where head level is, and then took the extra seconds to adjust to make sure she nailed that headshot. So that was, even if there was a body, she switched off to sniper immediately, so she was ready, right? She was ready for any kind of engagement or a quick follow-up body shot. Now, a lot of there isn't a lot of sliding into these engagements. There's a lot of head level strafing. Again, this is dangerous going into sniper lanes like this, especially when you see your opponent just immediately get domed. And now we've switched back to a more passive play, right? She confirms the headshot, very nice and clean. Again, knowing exactly where to look, actively moving towards it. Going back to, so now we're, again, actively moving towards people. Great skip grenade. Or scatter grenade. So one thing I wanted to touch on with this, and this is going to be, and this Rumble match in general, KD-wise, is very good. This is a very solid match, but the mistakes that she makes in this match are something that better players would take advantage of. And that's why I wanted to review this today, because even though this was a great match, right? What ends up happening is the things that happen in this match that don't necessarily get punished as hard as they should are issues that I guarantee you are coming up in your other matches. And it's reasons why you're failing in those matches, or in just Rumble in general, because of the decisions that you're making in this game, even though you don't die that much. But that scatter grenade was really good because it cut off that a person's ability to retreat, right? Their one lane to retreat back into cover is back in towards Dark Cave. So by throwing a grenade just next to them, not necessarily on top of them, they can't just run back into the grenade because they'll die. And if they run away from the grenade, they're pulling themselves out of cover and into a really good engagement for you. Because you can see we don't have any cover at this point. We have to fully engage this player, which we do. An important thing to note about scatter grenades, that even though our hero's running nothing manacles, there is a very specific way you use scatter grenades, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but you need to use a scatter grenade in the same way, exact same way you would use a sticky, that being a fusion grenade or a flux grenade. That is how you use scatter grenades. You don't use them like bolt grenades. You don't use them like skip grenades. You don't use them like anything that would track, because the tracking on scatter grenades, even with nothing manacles, is so minuscule that it needs to be on target. In fact, it's best to just hit the target with the grenade. That's going to basically guarantee that you're going to kill them. So if you haven't been thinking about scatter grenades in this way, or you've been using them and you've been using them to cut off lines, pushes into you, or you've been using them as sort of a defensive grenade or like a seeking grenade, I think they're over there, I'm going to throw my scatter grenade. That's not what this grenade is for. You use this grenade exactly like you would a sticky. And if you're not doing that, and you are using it like a bolt grenade, or you are using it like an area denial grenade, you need to switch grenades. You need to use Axiom Bolt, or you just need to use Vortex. I wouldn't highly recommend Vortex when you have Axiom Bolt, which is arguably one of the best grenades in the game. But if you're just more comfortable using that area denial over sometimes the occasional unreliability of Axiom Bolt, because if good players will slide underneath it, then do that. But if you're going to use Scatter Grenade and you're going to stick to it, you got to use it like a sticky, right? You see a guy, you throw it at the guy. You don't throw it around the guy. You don't throw it near the guy. You throw it at the guy. There's like that situation that came up was kind of niche. That was a situation where the grenade that wasn't necessarily the power play there. It was just the ability to cut off that person's movement. And you can do that with any grenade. You can use that with lightning grenade. You can do that with spike grenade. You can do that with a firebolt. If you throw it towards their exit and it tags them on their way out, right, and you've already gotten shots on them, that just cleans them up. Let me back this up a little bit. But we saw that as soon as we got our super, we just threw it out the first person that we saw, right? There was no hesitation here. Saw someone, had super up, threw it out. Even though it didn't hit, it still did enough damage on Vortex to finish them off. Now, if that was a lance, that might have killed that person, right? Even though they were in the air, that increased AoE. But lance is a little bit harder it's a little bit more unwieldy because it does go in a straight line. There's no tracking to it. So if you want to hit the ground, you got to aim at the ground, like at the exact point you want to hit the ground. So keep that in mind if you're a Voidwalker and you are using lance. Now, if you're using Vortex, a little, like we saw here, it's a little bit more flexible. It has that arc to it, and it leaves behind that big AoE, so you're going to take damage. So in this case, we use that damage to our advantage, and we only need to hit them with one shot with our Thorn. It's perfect. So now that we're getting shot from behind, let's talk about how to stay isolated in Rumble. So in Rumble, your ideal engagement is a 1v1, right? Now, there's going to be occasionally where you're just going to come upon two people that are already fighting and just pick off both of them for free. That's great. But ideally, you should be working on getting into 1v1s and winning those 1v1s as fast as possible. The way you do that in Rumble and the way you guarantee you get a 1v1 is by constantly isolating yourself. So what that means is you're always putting yourself in a position where you can only get attacked on one front or by one person. And you do that by either manipulating annoying spawns or putting your back to a wall. Now, there are risks to this method of playing Rumble and constantly isolating yourself. One is that because your back's to a wall, you have no escape route. So normally you have to kill your way out, which can be a problem for a lot of players. But again, if you're playing Rumble, the entire goal is to win the 1v1. So escape normally isn't an option. It's just kill or be killed. So that's okay for the most part. And there. That would have been, that example is perfect. Like that grenade, if that was a sticky, they would have gotten stuck, they would have died. Same thing. Because of the scatter grenade, they got stuck, they died. The other thing about isolation and Rumble is only getting attacked on one front because you know where the player is going to be. So the way you do that is by, like I said earlier, you manipulate spawns. So by standing in an area between spawns, you just rotate back and forth between them. This requires a lot of map knowledge. This isn't something you're going to be able to do overnight. But whenever you go into a Rumble match, you should go into a few Rumble matches every day with the express intention of learning spawns. Because learning spawns is huge in this game. It can change the way you play. It can change the amount of kills you can get. It can make it as easy as possible for you to move around the map because you know exactly where someone is going to be. And even just relaying that to your team can be a huge boon. Right? If you're playing threes and you're the guy that's like, okay, we're on, Orange Shores of Time, we just wiped them out on boats, and we know, hey, we just wiped them on boats, they're just gonna go out and they're gonna spawn on beach. Well, you can just immediately move from boats all the way to beach, and be ready for them right when they spawn. Or maybe they're gonna be in a cave, so you just surround a cave so they can't go out either side without getting shot at first. Like, knowing that makes those kills very easy because those players can no longer set up in Dark Cave. They can no longer set up back on boats. They can no longer set up around Shrine Room or in River. Like they don't have an opportunity to because you're just locking off those angles before they get a chance to move off spawn. That's really important, and Rumble is very good at teaching you those spawns. Obviously, the spawns that happen in the middle of the map aren't quite as important for threes or for sixes, but the spawns that happen around the edges of the map on either side, those are the ones you want to pay attention to because those are going to be mirrored in threes and in sixes. So by skirting around the edge of the map and by picking a point in between two major spawn points, right? And normally that's around B, and you just rotate off B towards A or off B towards C. You just basically do an arc back and forth. And it's sort of a mini rotation slash mini zone control, right? It's a mixture of the two styles that I've talked about before. And all you really do is you wait for someone to spawn, and you're in basically the center of the traffic lane, and as you're pushing towards one side, you're going to run into someone. Then you turn around and you push towards the other side, and you're going to run into someone again. And you just do this seesaw back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't have to be fast, and you're going to meet players all along the way based on how they're moving on the map. So here we move out, towards A Spesh, and we say we don't really have a shot here. And she doesn't really have a shot around that corner. I like the move that she takes here by floating onto the ninja pillar. Because if she pushes that corner and there's a shotgunner there, she's sliding into a shotgunner, right? And your best bet against shotgunners with this kind of build is just scatter grenading them. And then, or maybe possibly following up with a primary shot. So she confirms that she hits. Now this would have been a really good scatter if that pillar wasn't there, but this is the first mistake and the most common one that she's going to make throughout the rest of this game. And that's she pushed too aggressively, right? Knowing that your only tool to push shotgunners is a ranged grenade, right? And one that is a medium to close range, you can't push past that. If you get into that close range distance while you're pushing, that grenade is going to result in a trade, which isn't so great. It's okay in Rumble, but it isn't so great in other modes. Or you're going to whiff completely like here, and you're just going to get completely bodied by the shotgun. Now, if we had waited on Ninja, and we had a decent angle, right? We have no great cover, right? If our cover is jumping away, which is okay, that's not a bad option. It's just a slow option. So if they decide to push us, we're pretty much caught with our pants down. But we have an okay engagement here, knowing that we're probably going to get first shot off if they haven't seen us and we're already on Ninja. And if they do decide to push us, we have a good angle to just throw that grenade at them before they get to us to prime them. It doesn't even need to necessarily kill them. But by pushing into that player, overly aggressive, especially when you have sniper ammo, that tells me that you're making that mistake not just in this game, but often. So unfortunately, we missed the special, which just gets kind of drove by. We pick up the kill, but I want to point out again this snipe, and it's really subtle when it happens. But when she scopes in, right, she's moving in towards the target, and she scopes in, and as she's scoping in, she notices that this person is sprinting at me. Right, they have their shotgun out, they're coming right at me. Well, what does she do? You can tell. She slowly backpedals, right? She's backpedaling the whole time. That's what you need to do as a sniper. Every little bit of space matters in every engagement you get into when your sniper rifle is out. Because even if they don't have a shotgun out, maybe they have their primary out, by creating that space, especially if they're using something like an auto rifle or a hand cannon, if you're continuing to create that space and making it difficult for them to get into effective range, or more difficult than if you just sat there or move into them, you're giving yourself extra time. So that time can be converted into one of two ways. The first way is you can go for a second follow-up sniper shot. Now, this is a lot riskier now that they've changed flinch and how that affects how increased it is per shot and how you get to the maximum flinch faster now. So it's riskier for you to take double bodies now. It's a lot harder to hit them. But more importantly, you're giving yourself enough time to switch off your sniper and onto your primary to just finish them with a body shot or a headshot, depending on the sniper. So again, this push forward doesn't have to happen, right? You have a thorn, and this range here, right here, one, you can dip in and out of cover here, right? You can use this to your advantage. And two, if you continue to push into this player and they are running a shotgun, they can very easily just switch their shotgun and kill you before you're going to get all your shots off. And we do miss quite a few shots here, so that was plenty of time for our opponent to completely destroy us with a shotgun. don't move into players unless you're using something like a last word and you just can't deal with bloom, right? If you have you have a really hard time aiming and adjusting for bloom, and it's hard for you to hit very center mass because the closer to the center mass you are, the less bloom is going to affect you. If you have trouble doing that, then absolutely your option with last word is moving into them. Now, it isn't a great option, and it's going to result in trades or losses more often, but if it means you hit more shots, then I guess that's what you have to do. But if your shots are okay, or you're better at pacing your shots, or you're just more patient, then you don't want to move, right? You want to use your cover, or even just start backpedaling. You can move forward and then, okay, I'm in an engagement, I'm going to move back a little bit. Because they're going to switch to their shotgun once they get into that sweet spot, and they're going to try to slide into me. That's no good. So here's one of those grenades where it would have been better off being an Axion Bolt. Like, she thought that maybe someone was coming. I don't believe for a second that grenade was meant to pop the swarm grenade. That's just kind of a fun interaction. But it's important to abandon difficult positions of the map for you to push. Now, if she had a shotgun, pushing around that corner in the dark isn't quite so bad. You can get radar baited there pretty easily, but I think most players at the average skill level don't understand radar baits very well. I would say above average to like good and basically and above, they're going to understand radar baits. But your average player in your average game isn't going to understand a radar bait. So normally it's okay to just slide in there and challenge them with a shotgun. Now, because we don't have a shotgun, our option is to play the angle, back up, wait for them to push around the corner, and if they don't show up, we abandon, which is exactly what we did here. And we went to go look for another kill, which we got. You don't want to stay hard scoped on the same lane for very long. I say, and I teach a lot of people, that you should have a 3-second rule as a sniper. If you sat in a lane for 3 seconds and no one has shown up, you need to reposition. It's as simple as that. You can count in your head, you can use a metronome, whatever you want, but as soon as that 3-second mark hits and no one has shown up, you need to leave. Because you don't know if you're being a detriment to your team, you don't know if you're actually doing something there, and there could have came an opportunity for you if you had rotated sooner to help your team fire, or even just get in more engagements in Rumble. So here's the first instance where getting vertical is a bad thing. And again, this ties in with the previous issue that you're pushing too much into players, right? You're over pushing into them. It's good that we jumped here, but we didn't necessarily need to jump into this player. And because they jumped into us, our one defensive option is now ruined, right? That would have been a great grenade if our opponent decided to challenge us with a primary. But because we're in the air, the problem with being in the air is you have very little influence over your directional movement. It's very predictable. And it's very difficult to hit shots in the air if you're not running a shotgun yourself or a hand cannon. And even if you are running a hand cannon, your shots still aren't guaranteed. There's still a level of inaccuracy that comes with firing in the air. So knowing that, you shouldn't be pushing these into players like this through the air. You should be baiting players in the air. If she just jumps straight up into the air there, just to get an angle down onto that person, that would have been better than actively creating positive space for that player. Again, we get our Nova, we go use the Nova. I like the play. Even though we just saw that person got a blade, you don't really need to save your super for shutting down anything. It's on your opponents to get good supers. It's on you to get kills, not shut down supers. If you run a shutdown super in Rumble, your goal still shouldn't be to get shutdowns. It should just be to get kills as fast as possible. And shutdown supers is the easiest way to do that. Their point, their click, you get a kill, whoopee. Again, another example where getting aerial was really bad for you, right? Here we see someone on radar. Now we're behind cover. This isn't a great option because this does end up being a shotgun, but in Rumble, it's safe to assume everyone has a shotgun. Even if they don't have a shotgun, you should still be playing like they do. And that means this position isn't so great, right? They can just very easily slide into us. So jumping in the air here is good if we think they're going to get shotgun. Now this time our opponent was smart. They use their cover and they just use their primary. We got murdered for it. So that, even though it ended in a death, if we were playing against a shotgun, would have been an okay maneuver. No, it would have been great just because our position in general wasn't fantastic there anyway. But the maneuver was okay. So here, if you're going to peek dark lane, dark tunnel as a sniper, you don't want to do it from the heavy platform. You want to do it from just behind heavy using a head glitch or on the boat, because that's going to be where you're going to get easy head glitches. And also that's going to be a distance where it's really hard for a lot of primary weapons to hit you, unless you're running something like Mida. Now, when heavy spawns on Rumble, what I personally like doing, I don't normally pick up heavy unless I'm like right next to it after I win a fight. If I'm next to it and it hasn't spawned yet, I know that players are going to come to me. So I'll keep it up, I don't use it as bait. It's really easy to do that as a sniper. You just pick a spot that's way off radar or pretty far back, and you let them pick it up, because then you don't need to worry about heavy on your half of the map anymore. Excuse me. If you kill the person on your half of the map who picks up heavy, then you control that half of the map. You don't need to push the other half. You don't need to stop the other guy with heavy. As long as he doesn't come on your half of the map, you don't need to worry about him. All you need to do is hope that other players don't run into him. If you have a super, that's the only time I will aggressively push someone with heavy. It's like if I have a super up, I'm just going to try to shut them down, and I'll trade with them. I will happily trade with someone with a machine gun, because I'd rather trade with a machine gun than let them get 3 or 4 kills and get the heavy bonus and potentially catch back up into the game. So that person ends up popping a golden gun, and she does a smart thing and doesn't challenge at all. It would have been an okay challenge from maybe here, but still risky. Still an obvious place to challenge. So just running away, really good. She ends up going to the other heavy. They finally pick it up. Good back out here. This is a good disengage. Knowing that they have heavy, you don't have a great engagement here. She's trying to get away. Kind of getting stuck on shapes. Not a big deal. I like that grenade. Most scatter grenades so far haven't been so fantastic. But that's one that I'm okay with, because if they push you, then they're going to take damage. And if they don't push that lane, then you have a good sniper opportunity to set up a snipe. Which is exactly what she does. Use that little, those precious couple of seconds to her advantage. Gets up getting one body in a crossfire. Doesn't get out quite fast enough. And then this I didn't know, but apparently lifesteal trumps dots now, which is interesting to me. It doesn't stop red death, or it still stops red death, but apparently life support on your weapons doesn't get stopped by dots. So that's an interesting point to keep in mind if you do end up running a life support against Thorn, or against incendiary, or any kind of burn, really. So again, actively pushing towards players, not really being afraid. We see someone, they're pushing into us, we're backpedaling. This is kind of the rough point of the match because we don't have special anymore, so all our engagements are very limited. Now, most players in that position would have spammed shots. I like the wait, because you saw that they hit for a head on 78. Thorn hits on the head for 79, so you know she's outside of effective range. So that initial accuracy cone is going to be an issue, and it's going to be even more of an issue because you just took 2 shots and missed. So the bloom you're being affected by bloom. So taking that extra moment just to line up that shot, that's how you use hand cannons. You don't just spam because you see someone. And I know a lot of really good players will see someone and just spam their hand cannon, and I'll tell you right now, they're doing it wrong. And it's also why they complain so much about missing shots, because they're so far away, they haven't adjusted for the way the game has changed. A lot of those players still play like it's year 1, and they're just unwilling to adapt to how the game can be played now. And that's their own damn fault. But if you're listening to me and you want to get better with hand cannons, you have to pace. You have to pace. unless you're within that magical, like, -8 meters, right? If you're in that 23-meter range, spam away, right? Bloom isn't such a big deal when you're well within effective range. But once you're on the edge to beyond, you gotta pace your shots. I mean, a little tidbit about the hazard pay or the hazard box. If you're going to engage around anywhere there's a hazard box and you have time, blow up the hazard box or just stay away from it. There's a couple on Vertigo. There's some on Rusted Lands. There's one here. There's a couple on Burning Shrine. It's a little thing, but if it saves you from a stupid death, then it's a good thing. So here is a great example of getting vertical because your opponent has a very obvious line on you. They know where you're pushing, right? Even if you push straight ahead, you know where they are. But by jumping over like this, you basically throw off their aim. Now, if they were a sniper, you would probably get bodied because of how long you are in the air. I would have really liked to see a scatter grenade there. That was a perfect opportunity for you to throw one. Now, here's the issue that I have, the biggest issue that I have with playing so much in the air. If your opponent had landed half the shots that they missed there, you would have been dead. Like way earlier, that wouldn't have resulted in a trade at all. And this example right here is exactly what I see when players start playing more in the air. They go way overboard. They use it all the time. They think every engagement I can jump in the air. Every engagement it's a good idea to jump in the air. And even if you have Icarus on a hand cannon and it's like really good accuracy, and I have Icarus on my Ice Luna and I can hit, multiple headshots in the air with it because that's just how Icarus works, you still shouldn't play completely off the ground. There are times where it's good to play off the ground and there are times where it's bad. And there are going to be more times when it's bad than when it's good. Good times is when you need to push up to see down onto someone under complete cover, or you're using the ability to jump out of their vision to create cover for yourself using the map geometry. But what you don't want to do, especially as a Warlock, especially as a Titan, you can get away with it as a Hunter, is jump straight up into the air. Now, Hunter is a little bit different. Hunter, you can play a lot more off the ground because your jump is instant. You get an instant change of direction. It's more difficult to, especially with bones, it's more difficult to track where you're going to be at any given moment because of the nature of an instant change of direction using the Hunter jump. But with Warlock Glide and with Titan boost, you're completely predictable, right? Titan skating goes on a straight line. Even if you turn on a dime using shoulder charge, you still have to go in a straight line. So you've changed your straight line into a 90-degree angle. With Hunter Float, you float up in a very predictable arc. You come down in a very predictable arc. It's very easy to snipe someone doing that. It's very easy to just hit primary shots. And it's easier for me to stay grounded and watch you float up above me and just be like, oh, he's right up there. I don't even need to move back very much because he's just creating negative space for me. I don't need to worry about a shotgun. He's going away from me. I can just primary you down. And if I'm feeling especially saucy and you're floating above a door, I'll throw a lightning grenade that points straight up. There are issues with, or if you're running spike grenade, you can point a spike grenade straight up. There are issues with constantly floating, right? And giving your opponent the opportunity to adjust to that. You want to mix it up, right? Some engagements jump in the air, some engagements don't. If you jumped over the door one time, slide into it the next. So here, again, actively push into players. We have a Nova, we're just going to go look to use it. There's no mystery about that. We saw a guy, threw a Nova down. Scatter just slightly off, but we got a couple tags, but we don't have a great angle here. So it's good to adjust. If you don't like angles that you're seeing or you're located in Rumble, it's really good to have the presence of mind to be like, I don't like this. I'm going to move to somewhere I'm a little bit more comfortable. Like, she looks like she's comfortable in a cave. I mean, there's really good angles for dealing with pushes, and no, she gets a kill here. Now, again, the same issue has come up again, right? over and over and over. What are we doing? We're pushing into shotgunners. We are making it so easy for them to kill us, and we're very lucky that they didn't follow up melee there, because if they followed up melee, we would have been dead. If you're going to push that angle, and this has come up in a couple times that I've reviewed shores, if you're going to push this top heavy, or any hill in general, and you know someone is there, and you know that's likely that they have a shotgun, you don't push forward with your jump, you push straight up, right? That gives you enough time to get off a shot or two and try to melee to get a trade, as opposed to just pushing into them and dying, right? It would be even better if we had the ability to jump straight up and back, but on this position in A, we can actually fall off the edge of the map. So it's good that we get lucky and use our ability to create negative space by backpedaling and getting, 2 headshots and a body shot for the quick kill. But if we had missed a single shot there, we would have been dead. Just one shot. That's not a great margin for error, right? We want to put ourselves in positions where it's okay to make a few mistakes every now and then. Nobody has perfect aim. Even the best players don't have perfect aim. They're just obviously they're more consistent with it. That's why they're better than say you or I, but they're still going to miss. Everybody misses. So finally, we see a melee. That's the one thing I didn't see enough of while you didn't have sniper ammo, is trying to combine getting aerial and using your melee, right? Because if you can get a headshot on someone, and you just want to kill, you don't care about trading and rumble, even though if they, even if they have a shotgun, you can try to just follow up melee. Don't have to get fancy with it. Again, all these grenades that are connecting are functioning in the exact same way as sticky would. All these kills from these grenades, you just got to aim it like a sticky, right? Hit the person, not where they're going to be. Unless they're moving into you. Then try to hit where they're going to move into you. But you don't have to make very many predictive throws with scatter grenades if you're in that effective range, which is around shotgun range. Which is pretty much the same thing as a sticky. Once you get really good, you can start doing more predictive throws. But if you don't hit the ones in effective range where it's going to kill, then you need to focus on that over, maybe they'll show up and I'll kill them. So like I said, this was a really good game. I mean, really high KD, a lot of very solid kills, solid gun skill, good decision making, aside from the ability to push. And pushing is everything, and timing is everything once you get into a higher level. So knowing when the proper time to push, knowing how to push, and knowing how not to push is really important. So there were a lot of good examples of, using the ability to get into the air to push, or the ability to get into the air to get an angle, and then a lot of really bad examples of how it can go wrong, right? So that's pretty much all I had for you guys this time. No map stuff today. It's going to be a really short episode today. I have some personal stuff to take care of after this. I've been playing Titanfall 2 a little bit. Shout outs to the guy that wanted to party up with me, and then I was on Pure Offline. So if you tried to invite me, I'm sorry. I really was there. You know who you are. But kind of segue to that, while I was playing Titanfall 2, people that I was matching in Titanfall were messaging me, hey, I like your Crucible bootcamp stuff. And I just want to say that stuff means a lot to me. I've talked about it a little bit, and a lot of people just don't understand, but I put in a lot of work off the air, I guess, outside during my personal time. And it means a lot just to have, random people that I happen to run into in a different game say that, they really appreciate what I do. And I know that everybody watching now, you're all here because you like what I do. But I just want to say thanks to everyone that's ever, encouraged me or said that you liked that. It really does mean a lot to me. If I was kind of curt with you, it was either because I was tilting, or I probably just wasn't in a good mood. So I apologize. But I really do appreciate all those kind words that everyone has for me. But yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, ask me questions, leave me comments. When I get around to them, I answer questions. If you want to submit me gameplay, again, threes, rumble, elimination, if you do scrims or sweats, I critique all that stuff. So send those to me. Don't send me fours. Fours I critique in the same way as sixes, and I don't critique them at all. They're pretty straightforward. Fours are also a lot more team-based, so it wouldn't be a good gameplay critique for me giving you a team critique. I would rather critique an entire team, all 4 points of views, over 1 point of view. So if you have a team of 3 or 4 guys and all 4 of you or all 3 of you send me something, I will critique that. But if you send me fours of just you, I'm just going to tell you, send me something else. And if you like the show, you can still become a backer. It's just like becoming a Twitch sub. And you can get tutoring, or you can prizes and all that stuff. There's the rewards page, and you guys can all look at all that stuff in the description or on the website. But again, thank you guys for all your support. I really appreciate it. I've been your host, King Koala. This has been Crucible Boot Camp, and class is dismissed. See you guys later.